This is the Rogue Overland Adventure Chat show. I'm Nick Savacci, and this is episode number 7.
And I'm Mike Schaefer, and today we're going to talk about the time I tried to kill Nick.
Oh, man. All right, Mike, so like we said, this is episode 7, and in this episode, we're going to talk about a very interesting situation because there was a lot of emotions on this day.
Oh, yeah.
As you said, also an attempt to kill me.
Yeah, legit kill you.
So let me set the...
Before we start, I'm still sorry about that, okay? I really didn't mean to do it.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. So let me set the scene here for everybody. So this is our family travels together pretty much every summer. In addition to many, many other trips throughout the year. But every summer we do a very substantial trip, which could be anywhere from 9 days to an upcoming trip that's going to be 30 days. And it's all based on where we're going is how long the trip is. So in this particular year, we went to Oregon and a little bit of Washington. And I think we were out there for 19 days, as I recall.
I feel like it was 2 or 3 weeks or so, 2.5 weeks. It was a long 3 weeks, I think.
Yeah, all said and done. And so living out of the vehicles, right? Living out of the vehicles, we had another family with us, a great family that we've traveled with many times as well, and their kids. So there's, 6, 7 kids on this trip.
Yeah, and I think I feel like there was somebody else up there with us too, but maybe it was just... I don't know. I feel like there was 1,000 kids at one point.
A lot of kids.
Yeah, a lot of kids.
Before we get into the details of this exciting story, we want to take a second to thank a few sponsors who have come on board to support the Rogue Overland expedition. If you've not checked out some of the other YouTube videos we have, definitely check out the expedition videos. We also have gear review videos, trail review videos, and rig walk-around videos. The first sponsor we'd like to thank is SHIFTPOD. SHIFTPOD is built for exploring the extreme, and that takes a shelter that can handle it all. Whether that be the mountains, the deserts, or anywhere in between, the SHIFTPOD is a high-quality shelter built for outdoor enthusiasts, emergency responders, and anyone who needs a reliable shelter that can be set up quickly and easily. We've been using the SHIFTPOD as one of our ground tent setups for many years, and we can tell you that they can stand up to some serious abuse. Check them out at shiftpod.com. The next sponsor we'd like to thank is Underland Off-Road. From lighting to vehicle suspension and everything in between, Underland Off-Road has what you need to prepare your vehicle for an off-road adventure. When I think of Underland Off-Road, I think of parts for the Chevy Colorado, Chevy Silverado, and Ford Ranger. But they can also provide parts for imports like Toyota Tacomas. These aren't just guys slinging parts, but these are also outdoor enthusiasts. We've spent many a nights around the campfire with the crew of Underland Off-Road. They're great people, and it's a great company to support. Check them out at underlandoffroad.com.
So we stopped for lunch at this reservoir, and I don't remember the name of the reservoir, but it overlooks. So we're up kind of at the top, and it overlooks this reservoir.
Yeah.
And we stopped for lunch, and I'm making sandwiches or whatever, right, off the back of the van, and all of a sudden, every kid is coming in my direction, crying like somebody's dog died. They're crying. And come to find out, so Xander, all the kids, but really Xander and Carson, they do a lot of the RC rock crawling. Every trip, there's rock crawlers, and those two generally are off rock crawling them somewhere. And come to find out that Carson's rock crawler rolls down
He picked a bad line.
How
tall was that cliff? Like legit.
It had to be 80 feet, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
At least.
It was an 80-foot cliff. I mean, a cliff. It went right into water. It wasn't like a little beach at the bottom. 80-foot cliff, water.
Straight into water, almost like a quarry, like if you've seen the movie, right, where somebody jumps off the edge of the quarry. It's a straight fall. Like, And so this was the scenario. This is his RC somehow ended up falling down this thing and is now in the water and floating. And so I'm looking at it and saying, okay, thankfully it's still floating. It hasn't sunk.
I was thankful, honestly, when it first went down. I was thankful it wasn't a kid, because the way the kids were screaming, and I'm gonna I'll cut you back in.
No worries.
But I just remember sitting there and listening to the blood curdling scream. Like, people need to realize like how important these stupid little RCs are to these kids. Like, they freaking love these things. And the way they were screaming, my first thought was a kid went over this cliff.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt.
Based off their response, that's a complete, absolutely understandable.
Yeah.
And definitely, thankfully, that none of them didn't go.
Oh, man.
But so then I look at the situation, and at this point in time, I don't recall where you were. You were probably already moving towards the problem. But I start looking at it, and I start saying, well, okay, can I climb down this cliff?
Yeah.
What can I do? How do we get this RC before it decides to sink, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think this is probably the best portion for me to kind of tag you in, because basically from here going forward, I'm just moving towards the RC. I'm trying to solve, like, how do I get down there? When can I get to a point where I can just cliff jump in and get this thing before it sinks?
Chaos. Like, if I had one word to describe this situation, like, it went from, and I felt kind of bad later, because it went from blood, like, okay, kid fell off a cliff, because that's the way it is. And I turned over, and I remember to this day seeing Carson standing over the edge of this cliff. And this is probably bad parenting on my part, too. Like, they never should have been up there. Right. Like, we give our kids a lot of free rein when we're out and about. True. You know, and they're kind of daredevils. They really are. But I remember looking over him, and he's got the remote in his hand. And he's got this look on his face, you know, his mouth is on the ground, and he's just like, and I mean, and I'm just thinking, what the crap? And then when he finally got out what had happened, I'm like, I almost got mad at him, because I'm like, these things aren't cheap. There's a lot of money in these stupid little, like, they start as a $300 ready to run kit, you know, and then
throwing money at it.
They're worse than the real trucks. I mean, they're cheaper, but they're still just as bad as the real trucks. And I remember going, and I told him, I said, Carson, that's gone. Like, it's in the water, it's gone. Like, it's gone. There's nothing I can do, Carson. It's at the bottom of the lake. Right. You know? And we're standing at the edge, and I think you walked up next to me, and I'm just like, Carson, it's gone. And I really am. I'm mad at this point. I really am. Like, how could you be so careless, you know? And I feel really bad about that later on, you know? But it was the craziest thing, because we're standing there, and then all of a sudden, all I see are two little tires in the water, just like little bobbers. Yep. And I think I looked at you and said, Nick, that thing's floating down there. And I remember the way they're weighted was basically half of it was underwater, kind of down a little bit, and the two tires were just sitting there floating. Yeah. Just blop, blop. And it's a cliff.
It's a cliff.
It's an 80-foot cliff. Yeah. And I'm looking at it going, holy crap, how can we go down there? Because it's just sitting. There's not much of a breeze. You know, and I think the thing was in the water it had to be 45 minutes.
Absolutely.
And it did actually start working its way around. But I told Carson, I'm like, dude, I don't know how to even get down. Like, I'm looking at this mountain, you know, and I'm like, I don't know how you're going to get down there to get it. Right. I'm like, and I keep telling him, I'm like, well, there it is, but it's going to sink before anybody can get to it. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think at some point in this conversation where I'm like, it's gone, Carson, you need to accept this. And I remember all the kids like in a circle around one of the parents, and they're just crying.
Every kid.
Dude, it was
crying.
insane.
Every kid.
I'd never seen like, you know, and our kids will fight all the time. They're like siblings. They've been together so much. But Absolutely. I mean, they all came together at that point. They were around Carson. Yeah. They were around like, you know, we're sorry your family dog died, because that's the way this thing went down.
Mourning really over this
And
RC.
I remember turning around, and all the kids are just around like one of the parents, and they're just, you know, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I don't know. So I don't know where in that whole process, you know, that you made the decision to go down there.
Right. I don't either.
You just started climbing down. You're like, well, I'm going down there and see if I can get it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to have to get in the water. So, and it was chilly, man. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't like it was warm. No. It was Oregon runoff water.
And I am not a cold water person, but
but
I was just it was a race against the clock, because like it was going to
sink.
I'm thinking it's going to sink, and once it sinks, it's over.
It's over. Yeah. It's over. And so you started going down the mountain. So you started hiking down. Right. So me, and here's what you understand. And if you guys are, listening to this on your radio, and you may not have seen us, Nick is a very thin, athletic, muscular, sexy man. And man. I'm a double cheeseburger with fries kind of guy, Like I get around all right, but I mean, I am definitely not a mountain goat.
You're the sexy beard mountain guy.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm watching you climb down this hill, and you're sneaking back and forth, and you're doing your thing, and handholds down. Right. And somewhere, you had to be about 3/4 of the way down the hill.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of pacing. I'm going back and forth at the top, like, I'm going to find me a way down. I'm going to find me a way down. And I'm walking, and I'm walking. And finally, you were probably about 3/4 of the way down when I made the decision, like, this is where I'm going to make my stand. And I swear to you, Nick, I'm above your head. You're probably 3/4 of the way down this 80-foot cliff. And I start kind of scrambling down like an idiot. Like, I don't know what in the world I was going to do, Right. But I get to this spot, and I'm like, I'm shuffling my feet around, trying to find placing, and I kick this rock. And all I remember was, I don't know how big that rock was, but it wasn't small. It was probably a 6, 8-inch, 10-inch diameter.
It made a big bloop
boulder.
When it hit the water, for sure.
And all I see is my foot kick it. And it was enough time for me to realize I kicked the rock, it's off the cliff, and it's headed straight for Nick.
Right.
Who's 60, 70 foot down below me.
Oh, man.
And I thought.
And I don't know at this point, I have no idea.
Yeah, you have no idea.
I have no idea.
And there's nothing I can do. All I can do, and all I did was just start screaming, Nick, rock, cover. And all I remember is you never looked up. All you did, and I don't know if this is just like good moves on your part or blind faith or what, but all you did was take your arms and cover your head and look like you tried to make yourself as small as possible.
It's like we had this thing, my group of friends, when we were growing up, because we used to race like in farm roads and stuff, closed private farm roads, of course,
in Mexico.
Yeah. But and it would be, the thing was very bad thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Very bad thing. Like, you don't have time to process, like, there's a shopping cart in the road, or there's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you would just yell, very bad thing. And so when you yelled cover,
You just covered.
I have no time to process. So I was just like against the wall and cover my head.
Yeah. And I watched that, and I'll tell you to this day, man, there's things in your life that, I've done a lot of cool things in my life, and I probably can't remember half of them, but there's things that just scar your brain in life.
Yep.
And that's one of those things I will always remember, that watching and thinking about that. Because it's far enough that I've got time to process what is happening right now with that rock. And I watched that rock come down, and I don't know where it landed. I know it ended up in the water. I'm pretty sure it bounced off of something close to you.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was, I don't remember exactly, and time distorts things, but it easily within 10 feet.
Yeah.
Right? Within 10 feet.
And I remember it kind of hit the wall, bounced, and hit the water. And I just remember, oh my gosh. I'm like, I almost killed Nick. Because if that rock would have hit you, it was a big enough rock and high enough. There's some speed. It's terminal velocity at that point, and I'm just thinking, dude, I would have had to raise 2 families. Like, I don't even know. Right. I hope Nick had good life insurance, because I just like, oh my God.
No, I got 2 wives and 6 kids.
I remember thinking, like, how can I make this bad situation worse? Oh, I know. Let's kill someone while I'm trying to do the rescue. And, oh, man. And at that point, I cut my losses and backed up. I'm like, I'm not going to try to follow him down there.
Yep.
Because by the time I get down there, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill Nick. And, what's the point? I'm going to get down there and not be able to do anything more than Nick can do,
Yep.
But I don't know. It was like, I guess it was pride on my part, too. I'm like, well, Nick can go down there. And I was like, no, if Nick get out, it doesn't mean I can go down there.
Oh, man.
But,
that was a crazy
man. I don't know. The rest of that story, did we ever tell getting the rest of the rock, how that actually got out?
It's probably worth a quick wrap up. I don't know how it happened, but somebody up there had a family member in the water.
No, I remember now. There was a guy cleaning the bathrooms.
Okay.
He was cleaning the bathrooms, and kind of find out he was either like the camp host in the area or like the local Forest Service representative or whatever.
Right.
He was cleaning the bathrooms. So he walks up, there's kids screaming, there's dudes scrambling down the mountain, and he's like, what the frick is going on? And I don't know, one of the moms or something had told him like what had happened.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, well, my girlfriend's on the other side of the lake in a kayak.
Kayak, yeah.
You know, like just so he walks over to the side, starts screaming at her, and I don't know how far that lake was, but I mean,
huge.
it was huge.
Yeah, easy quarter-mile across.
But then there's like, so you're hiking down. There's three of us yelling at her. Yep. She finally picks up on it and starts kayaking our way. And it probably took her, she probably kayaked for 20 minutes just to get across the lake to us.
And then I'm down there. I finally made it to water level. But by this time, like you had said, there wasn't a major current, but it had drifted.
Yeah, it was starting to work.
Easy 200 meters from the point of start to. And so I realized she's down there, so I'm thankful because I don't need to get in this cold water. It's still floating.
And none of us could believe the thing was still in the water. Yeah.
And so I finally make it to water level, and I'm start talking to her, say, hey, a little bit this way, it's right there.
Yeah, we're yelling from the top, like, go right, go left. And she's out there doing like figure eights, and finally she pulled up next to it, grabbed it out of the water, put it on the kayak. And of course, she got to you, and she looked like that poor girl looked just wore out by the time she got to you.
All the way across.
I mean, she'd been, this whole process was.
It was, like you said, probably about 45 minutes, all said and done. And so she gives it to me, and then
you got to hike it back up.
I got to climb up, and now I'm climbing up with one less hand because I'm carrying this.
It's not like a little rock. I mean, they're 1/10 scale axial SCX2s or whatever.
Yeah, and he's got the modified tires, which he always attributes to it continuing to float. But so I climbed back up with it. And then I think to me, the whole story is just great. Like you said, it's ingrained in your mind. I know Sean likes to call them like core memories, right? Yeah. It's like a core memory. I'll never forget it. But the thing to me is that I think you let that sit for 2 days or something. And then it worked. It fired back up.
So she pulled it out of the water after, had to be 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You hiked it back up, and you handed it to me. And I remember when you handed it to me going, the lights are still on because it's got a row of LED lights across the thing.
Well, because the battery was still plugged in.
And the lights were upside down in the water the entire time. Like they were, the only thing sticking out of the water was like the top third of, I think, the back tires because the battery's in the front.
Yeah.
So it was the back tires that was kind of sitting there, and the lights were still on. And I just like shut it off, turned it off, unplugged the battery, and I told Carson, I said, we're just going to leave this for a couple days.
Yep.
And I said, we'll find a hobby shop and fix whatever's broke.
Right.
And I think we sat there for about 2 days. We traveled around, and on the second or third day, we got it out, plugged it in, turned it on, and he drove it off.
Yep. And he drove it the rest of the trip.
That rest of that trip. Yeah. And I think I finally had to put a motor in it about... I finally had to put a steering servo in it. And that may have been his fault, but I think the motor finally gave out about 3 or 4 months later. And when I pulled it apart, like it was rusted inside, but it still ran. And that was like the motor that came in it from Axial. So shout out to Axial, man, because I mean, we've definitely spent some money with you guys.
Oh man.
And that stupid thing like legit floated upside down for 45 minutes. All the electronics were underwater.
Yeah, the whole
third of the rear tires was sticking up, and that was it.
Yep. Yeah, and they don't sponsor this show.
No. We sponsor them, trust me. But yeah, and I'll be honest. To this day, I've told him about 10 times. I'm like, dude, you probably ought to pull the axles apart, like grease the diffs and stuff. The axles have still never been gone through. The transfer case has never been apart.
That grease is so nasty.
That's like 2 years ago, I think, and he's still running it. I finally had to put another steering servo in the front of it this last weekend, but.
Yep.
But dude, shout out to Axial for that because that was probably the worst moment and highlight of that trip. Man, it was just the emotional, and all the kids when it came back up were just like,
oh yeah, the swing of emotion on them was like the family dog died. To I don't know, you won the lottery or something. You know,
and I'd never seen. I mean, that was, and I remember getting in the truck when we were done. I was like, I'm done. Like, I just want to curl up somewhere and take a nap. Like, it's just wore out.
Oh, man.
But, yeah.
All right.
Well, the moral of that story is don't kill your friends.
Don't kill your friends. Adventure, but don't kill them. So, all right. So, let's see. What we need to make sure you guys know is that we are releasing this show every second and third Thursday of each month.
Yep.
And outside of that... I don't know, where can they find us?
Be sure to look us up on at Rogue Overland on all your social media platforms, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, all of them.
The YouTube.
And especially the YouTube. Yeah. And that's where you'll find us.
All right, we'll see you on the trail.
Copyright Rogue Overland 2024, all rights reserved.